In this series, I'm exploring the world's largest sand island, Fraser Island, located just off the east coast of Australia. In the previous episode, we set off from Kingfisher Bay on the western side of the island, heading east. Along the way, we encountered Lake Mackenzie, which is the largest freshwater lake on the island. We also had a look at the rainforests in the Pile Valley. This is the central part of the island where enormous trees grow directly out of the sand. The thing that I was so worried about was that Fraser Island was going to be full of tourists and I wouldn't be able to make a film. But so far that's not the case. There's a lot of people, but it's a big place. And I've barely bumped into only maybe 20 people today. And for the most part, I've got it to myself. But we'll see what happens once we hit the beach and the campsites. There could still be a lot of people there, but we'll see. I am about to arrive at the beach on the eastern side of the island. Okay, so we've had some lunch and we've inflated the tyres back to road pressures because we are going to be driving on the beach. And the sand on the beach is firm sand, so we need road pressures. In this episode, we are hitting the beach and driving up the eastern side of the island in search of the shipwreck of the Ss Mahino. And it is 1:20, it is exactly 10 minutes before low tide. What a beautiful day it is. The beach runs the full length of the island, about 120 kilometres. So the speed limit on the beach is 80 kilometres per hour. The beach links together the myriad of inland tracks and is often the only way of getting from one place on the island to the other. The trick is to find the bit of sand that is the correct firmness. So you don't want to drive in the water. If you drive too close to the water, it'll be too soft and you might get bogged. If you drive up in the soft part, you might not get bogged, but it's much harder driving up there. But somewhere in between the two is nice firm sand. Well, believe it or not, this is one of the most dangerous beaches in the world. It is one of the few places in the world where the beach has been officially declared a highway. You can drive along here at 80 k's an hour. But you need to keep two things in mind. One, the high tide and low tide. So currently it's low tide. That's how much beach you get to use. You can see that the sand is still drying out in places. And then high tide, you can see behind me the high tide line, which is right near the shrubs. So this beach is impassable at high tide. But in the middle between high tide and low tide, it's perfect for driving on, and this is the only way to get around the island. Oh, and the other thing you need to watch out for is aircraft, because this is one of the two places in the world where commercial aircraft can actually land on the beach. So as you're driving, you will see witches' hats put down, and that's the landing strip for the plane. So not only do you need to watch out for soft sand and make sure you don't drive too close to the ocean where you can get bogged, or too high up in the powdery part, which makes it really tough going, but you also need to look up in front of you and up behind you for approaching aircraft. In fact, there's one right in front of me right now. can't see any aircraft. Good. Now you'll notice every few hundred meters there's a stream running from the hills into the ocean, and that's basically runoff from the lakes and rain heading out to the sea. And these little streams are typically millimeters in height, maybe half a centimeter in height, so they're very, very shallow, and they occur quite frequently, every few hundred meters. So the last time I was here, I was merrily driving along the beach at 80 kilometers per hour, and I had crossed dozens of these streams before, and they were all the same. They were all millimeters in height. They're about a meter or so in width, and it's just like a small little wet puddle that you're driving through. So there's no big deal whatsoever. Unfortunately, I got to one particular stream that looked exactly the same as the rest, and I ploughed through it, and the water in there was about half a metre deep. This was Eli Creek, and this is a permanent creek. It looked exactly the same to me as all the other streams, and I ploughed into it head first. Water went way over the windscreen, over the roof. I thought the car was going to snap in half, but luckily it was all okay, and the momentum actually carried me through to the other side of this river. This was about 5 or 6 meters in width from memory, so luckily I was going fast enough to get carried through to the other side. Otherwise, if I would have been going slower, I would well and truly have been stuck in that creek.
I've come up against some rocks. Now the tyre marks on the ground suggest that there are people who've gone over the rocks, but there are also a lot of people turning around. Now, without actually getting out and having a look, I'm just not sure if my clearance is great enough to actually get up onto those rocks. And I'm here by myself, and I just don't feel like getting stranded on the rocks or anything breaking. So I'm going to turn around and find another way around.
So I'm now caught between the ocean and these rocks. I have to find another way around. Maybe up here. Yes.
We have success.
Uh-oh. And back on the track. Oh, that's much easier than trying to climb those rocks down there. Yes, it was a wise decision.
In hindsight, I could easily have climbed those rocks, but I'm not out to prove to anyone that I can climb the rocks. I just want to get to my destination. And if there's an easier way of doing it, then I will take the easier road.
Wow, he made it. I suppose I could have too if I really have tried.
I passed the rest of the afternoon happily driving along the rocks and the beach. It's a beautiful day and it's an easy drive. For this section, I recommend 4-wheel drive high range.
So this beach that I'm driving on right now has been consistently voted, if not the most, but in the top 5 most dangerous beaches in the world. And this has been voted by the internet, so it must be true. But reputable travel websites and companies consistently rate this as one of the most dangerous beaches. Not only do you have the dangers that I mentioned before about driving and getting bogged and watching for the tides and aircraft and so on, but you've also got the surf. Now, swimming is not advised. You've got a lot of very powerful waves and very strong current. It's very unpredictable. And it's always quite rough looking. Not only that, only 2 weeks ago, there was a guy right here on Fraser Island on the beach. He was in the water and he got attacked by a shark, and unfortunately, he died. There's also, in the summer months, saltwater crocodiles. There's also stinging jellyfish, box jellyfish, especially Irikanji jellyfish. Now, Irikanji jellyfish are the most lethal jellyfish in the world. And lucky us here in Australia, we've got bucket loads of them. They are about the size of a marble to a golf ball, but typically somewhere between the two. So they're basically about 1 centimetre cubed in size. They're completely see-through, and their tentacles grow to about 40 centimetres to a metre long. Their tentacles are covered with little spikes, and these release a neurotoxin. And not only are the tentacles covered in spikes, but so is the head. The entire body is covered in spikes, so you can't even touch these things. Their venom is so powerful. Oh, there's some dingoes. 2 dingoes, look at that. Scavenging for fish. Now let me get the facts right, I've got them on my phone here. The Irikanji jellyfish is both the smallest and most venomous jellyfish in the world. The sting can cause fatal brain hemorrhages and is 100 times more potent than a cobra and 1,000 times more potent than a tarantula spider. When stung, the small amount of venom induces excruciating muscle cramps in the arms and legs, severe pain in the back and kidneys, a burning sensation of the skin and face, headaches, nausea, restlessness, sweating, vomiting, an increase in heart rate and blood pressure, and psychological phenomena such as a feeling of impending doom. The article goes on to say, the sting is moderately irritating. The severe effects are delayed for 5 to 120 minutes, but 30 minutes on average. The symptoms last from a few hours to weeks, and victims usually require hospitalization. Death can occur in as little as 2 hours. So that is the Irikanji jellyfish. They are all over the place, especially in tropical waters, including Fraser Island. Well, that was the infamous Eli Creek. That was the very same creek that I ploughed through when it was 1/2 metre deep a few years ago. But luckily it was only about this deep and I got through it without an issue.
Coming up ahead is the shipwreck of the Ss Mahino. And this is always an amazing sight, seeing the shipwreck slowly emerge from the mist. It makes it look even spookier than it is. This is the shipwreck of the Ss Mahino. It was built in 1904 in Scotland and was originally used as a luxury transport vessel in the Tasman Sea. It was converted to a hospital ship during World War I and served in the English Channel. Following the war, it was converted back to a luxury transport vessel and continued its service in the Tasman Sea. By 1935, it had reached the end of its life and was sold to a Japanese shipbreaker. In June of 1935, it was being towed to Japan and the ship encountered a tropical cyclone. The tow rope broke and the ship became stranded here on Fraser Island. The ship was briefly used as target practice during World War II, but since then, for the past 85 years, it has sat here, slowly being taken by the sea. It will likely be gone in another 80 years. Next time, we leave the beach and head across to the other side of the island. But first, we need to find a way off the beach.
So now the tide is really coming in fast, so I need to get off the beach as soon as I can. I have maybe an hour. Okay, am I lost? Is there such a thing as being lost? I've got two separate GPSs and a map. I can't be lost. So as I was driving, I was thinking, this is the reason I really love overlanding and forward driving. Getting to come to a place like this, which is absolute paradise.
I meet some of the locals. And I find the perfect camping spot.